The Quran, the Great War and the West by Imran N. Hussein. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. سنفرغ لكم أيها الثقلان. We shall one day take you to task, O you sin-laden too. Surah Al-Rahman, chapter 55, verse 31. In the above verse, the Quran has addressed both a Western world that is loaded with sin, as well as the shayateen, plural of shaitan or Satan, who are evil jinn, who have supported and strengthened the West during their last 500 years of arrogant, blood-stained rule over the world, to declare that Allah will bring their sin-laden rule over the world to an end. The verse below informs them how He will do so. يُرْسَلُ عَلَيْكُمَا شُوَاظٌ مِّن نَارٍ وَنُحَاسٌ فَلَا تَنْتَصِرَانِ. A flash of fire will be let loose upon you, followed by smoke, and you will be left helpless. Surah Al-Rahman, chapter 55, verse 35. Surah Al-Rahman also warns them that their missiles, satellites, drones, etc. can fly through the skies or from beneath the earth and the depths of the seas only with Allah's authority. This implies that He can withhold His authority at any time, and that may just happen in the Great War. An angel, for example, can intercept a nuclear-armed intercontinental ballistic missile speeding towards a designated target and turn it around to return it to its sin-laden sender. Those who serve us with poison will eventually swallow it and poison themselves. Vladimir Putin, President of Russia, and the kings of the earth, and the great men, and the rich men, and the chief captains, and the mighty men, and every bondman, and every free man, hid themselves in the dens and in the rocks of the mountains. Revelation 6:15. But a true believer in the one God is not afraid to die. The Quran, the Great War, and the West. إِنَّ مَوْعِدَكُمُ الصُّبْحِ أَلَيْسَ الصُّبْحُ بِقَرِيبٍ. Verily their appointed time for their destruction is in the morning, and is the morning not close? The Holy Quran, Surah Hud, chapter 11, verse 81. The Quran declares in Surah An-Nahl, chapter 16, verse 89, that it explains all things, and this implies that it can explain not only the historical process and the movement of history, but also the moment in history in which mankind is now located. This essay delivers startling evidence of the validity of that claim. Our study of the Quran reveals that modern Western civilization's 500 years of blood-stained rule over the world is now coming to an end, and that the Great War on Orthodox Christian Russia, for which the world of Western Christianity and their Jewish Zionist allies now lust, will be the beginning of that end. The Quran allows us to anticipate that the world after the Great War would be one in which the true followers of Jesus, alayhi salam, located mostly in Orthodox Christianity, would achieve a divinely ordained superiority over their Western rivals, and that such dominance over their sinful, godless rivals will continue until the end of the world. The Quran declared that there would be a Christian people who would be closest in love and affection for Muslims. In making this declaration, Allah Most High has disclosed to the world the means by which the true followers of Jesus alayhi salam can be recognized in Akhir al-Zaman, i.e. the end time. We live in strange times in which true Muslims and true Christians, as well as those few courageous Jews who oppose the Zionist state of Israel are oppressed to such an extent that they have now joined the ranks of the wretched of the earth. The Orthodox Christian people of Russia, as well as in many other parts of the world, have suffered immensely from endless unjust wars waged against them by the Ottoman so-called Islamic Empire, as well as by Western Christianity. They then suffered the brutal oppression of Jewish-sponsored Bolshevik revolution, which brought about regime change in Russia, communism, and a consequent long dark night of atheist USSR war on Orthodox Christianity in order to destroy their religious faith. Having miraculously extricated themselves from that venomous atheist Soviet embrace and recovered their military power with which to defend themselves, they are now threatened with nuclear war by a Western Christian world that is led by those who seem to have been driven to madness by the touch of Satan. This essay offers hope that the wretched of the earth will not have to suffer for much longer. Our forthcoming second book on Dajjal, the false Messiah, will provide yet more evidence that the Great War will prepare the way for Jesus, the true Messiah, alaihi salam, to soon return to this world, after which the sun will shine even more brightly for the wretched of the earth. It is not possible for us to conceive that mankind will ever experience another war comparable to the Great War that will soon occur. Hence this essay recognizes the coming Great War to be the Malhama or Armageddon prophesied by Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If, as expected, the Great War results in a nuclear war in which nuclear weapons as well as other weapons of mass destruction are used, then such a war would be an absolutely unique event in human history. It is expected that millions will instantly die at the commencement of such a war, and that countless cities and towns will be instantly destroyed. While the verses of the Quran below may not be referring to the event of that great war, the imagery provided is helpful for understanding what can happen when the great war occurs. إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم خامدون. It would be no more than a single mighty blast of our punishment, and behold, they who are to be punished would be like ashes, still and silent. Surah Yasin, chapter 36, verse 29. إنا أرسلنا عليهم صيحة واحدة فكانوا كحشيم المحتضر. For we would send against them, who are to be punished, a single mighty blast, and they would become like the dry stubble used by one who pens cattle. Surah Qamar, chapter 54, verse 31. Many more can die shortly after the commencement of the Great War because of lack of water or food, or in the violence and anarchy that will descend upon mega cities in particular, when desperate people attack each other for food or water. Many more can die because of bitter cold that can grip that war-stricken part of the earth when smoke from exploding nuclear weapons in the shape of mushroom clouds fills the sky, thus blocking out sunlight and consequently heat. And finally, even more can die from biological and other effects of nuclear war. Surah Ar-Rahman of the Blessed Quran allows us to anticipate, however, that not all nuclear missiles will fly on that day, and not all will reach their targets, for the evil ones plan their plans, and Allah plans His plans. Here is a summary of some of the consequences of nuclear war. The summary is taken from the website nucleardarkness.org. Even though some of the views which appear below may not have scientific or scriptural confirmation, we remind our readers that there is no precedent other than 2 nuclear bombs dropped by the sin-laden oppressor on 2 cities in Japan, which allows us to anticipate the consequences of the Great War with any degree of certainty. A secular view of the consequences of nuclear war. US-Russian nuclear war would produce 150 million tons of smoke. 2,600 US and Russian strategic nuclear weapons on high alert are launched in 2 to 3 minutes at targets in the US, Europe and Russia, and perhaps at other targets which are considered to have strategic value. Some fraction of the remaining 7,600 deployed and operational US and Russian strategic nuclear warheads or weapons are also launched and detonated in retaliation for the initial attacks. Hundreds of large cities in the US, Europe and Russia are engulfed in massive firestorms which burn urban areas of tens of hundreds of thousands of square miles. 150 million tons of smoke from nuclear fires rises above cloud level into the stratosphere, where it quickly spreads around the world and forms a dense stratospheric cloud layer. The smoke will remain there for many years to block and absorb sunlight. The smoke blocks up to 70% of the sunlight from reaching the Earth's surface in the northern hemisphere, and up to 35% of the sunlight is also blocked in the southern hemisphere. In the absence of warming sunlight, surface temperatures on Earth become as cold or colder than they were 18,000 years ago at the height of the last ice age. There would be rapid cooling of more than 20 degrees Celsius over large areas of North America, and of more than 30 degrees Celsius over much of Eurasia, including all agricultural regions. 150 million tons of smoke in the stratosphere would cause minimum daily temperatures in the largest agricultural regions of the Northern Hemisphere to drop below freezing for 1 to 3 years. Nightly killing frosts would occur and prevent food from being grown. Average global precipitation would be reduced by 45% due to the prolonged cold. Growing seasons would be virtually eliminated for many years. Massive destruction of the protective ozone layer would also occur, allowing intense levels of dangerous UV light to penetrate the atmosphere and reach the surface of the Earth. Massive amounts of radioactive fallout would be generated and spread both locally and globally. The targeting of nuclear reactors would significantly increase fallout of long-lived isotopes. Gigantic, ground-hugging clouds of toxic smoke would be released from the fires. Enormous quantities of industrial chemicals would also enter the environment. It would be impossible for many living things to survive the extreme rapidity and degree of changes in the temperature and precipitation, combined with drastic increases in UV light, massive radioactive fallout, and massive releases of toxins and industrial chemicals. Already stressed land and marine ecosystems would collapse. Unable to grow food, most humans would starve to death. A mass extinction event would occur, similar to what happened 65 million years ago when the dinosaurs were wiped out following a large asteroid impact with Earth. 70% of species became extinct, including all animals greater than 25 kilograms in weight. Even humans living in shelters equipped with many years' worth of food, water, energy, and medical supplies would probably not survive in the hostile post-war environment. If even a fraction of what is anticipated above does occur, the consequences would be horrendous. Since the Quran has declared that it explains all things, it is impossible that it does not explain the Great War and its horrendous consequences. This essay attempts to provide that divinely revealed scriptural explanation from the blessed Quran. Methodology adopted for writing this essay. Our essay is based on the explanation and interpretation of verses of the Quran which we recognize to be connected with the subject of the Great War. We resort to hadith of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam on the subject only to explain or to supplement that which has been established from the Quran. Those of our sin-laden critics who continuously accept state-of-the-art weapons, including chemical weapons, and US dollars from Santa Claus to wage their bogus jihad in Chechnya, Iraq, Syria, and elsewhere, must be reminded that at no time can a hadith supplant or refute that which has been established from the Quran. While we recognize that there can be other explanations or interpretations of verses of the Quran or hadith, other than those presented in this essay, we remind readers that there is a proper procedure to be adopted when judging whether an explanation or interpretation of a verse of the Quran or a hadith is valid or invalid. We have learnt that proper methodology from our teacher, the distinguished scholar of Islam, Maulana Dr. Muhammad Fadlur Rahman Ansari, 1914 to 1974, who has explained that methodology in his 2-volume magnus opus, The Quranic Foundations and Structure of Muslim Society. Proper methodology requires the integration of all verses of the Quran pertaining to a particular subject into a harmonious whole in order to locate the divine system of meaning pertaining to that subject. When that system of meaning from the Quran that explains a particular subject has been located, it must then be applied to all hadith on that subject. When a hadith is found to be in harmony with the Quran, it would be recognized as valid and authentic. It can then be integrated into the data extracted from the Quran. In this way, the database of the subject would constantly expand. It is with such an integrated database of the subject, and not with preconceived agendas, nor with loyalty to this or that sect, group or scholar, that an interpretation of the Quran or hadith should be judged for acceptance or rejection. We have explained the subject of proper methodology in greater detail in our recent book entitled Methodology for Study of the Quran. This essay never attempts to translate the Arabic text of the Quran to another language, since we believe that the Arabic Quran is miraculous and cannot therefore be translated to any other language. Rather, we offer to explain the meaning of those verses of the Quran which we have quoted in this essay. Finally, our Islamic eschatological view is that the Great War or Malhama can commence at any time now. The prevailing expert opinion is that when it does commence, it will involve the use of nuclear weapons and other such weapons of mass destruction, and hence is unlikely to last for long. Our readers will not have to wait for a long time for events to unfold, which will validate or invalidate the analysis of the verses of the blessed Quran presented in this essay. If we have explained the blessed Quran correctly, then those who summarily reject this essay and then go on to urge others as well to reject it would be a people with a strange and dubious relationship with knowledge. and with truth. Does the Quran confirm that such a cataclysmic event will occur before the end of the world? The Quran does confirm an event that will occur before the end of the world, in which Allah Most High has declared that no city or town will escape destruction, and that those that are not destroyed will suffer terrible punishment. وَإِن مِّن قَرْيَةٍ إِلَّا نَحْنُ مُهْلِكُوهَا قَبْلَ يَوْمِ الْقِيَامَةِ أَوْ مُعَذِّبُوهَا عَذَابًا شَدِيدًا كَانَ ذَلِكَ فِي الْكِتَابِ مَسْطُورًا. There is not a town or city, but we shall destroy it before the day of resurrection, or punish it with dire punishment. That is set forth in the book of our decrees. Towns and cities will face divinely ordered destruction according to the Quran, when dhulm, i.e. injustice, wickedness, oppression, etc. prevails. At that time, their fate is sealed, and the time for their destruction is fixed. وَتِلْكَ الْقُرَىٰ أَهْلَكْنَاهُمْ لَمَّا ظَلَمُوا وَجَعَلْنَا لِمَهْلِكِهِمْ مَوْعِدًا. And all those townships, we destroyed them when they committed dhulm, injustice, oppression, wickedness, and we appointed a fixed time for their destruction. Surah Al-Kahf, chapter 18, verse 59. The Quran also informs us the earth will one day be reduced to dry dust. Hence, it would be an earth where there will be nothing green, nothing will grow, and there will be no food. إِنَّا جَعَلْنَا مَا عَلَى الْأَرْضِ زِينَةً لَهَا لِنَبْلُوَهُمْ أَيُّهُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا وَإِنَّا لَجَاعِلُونَ مَا عَلَيْهَا صَعِيدًا جُرُزًا. Behold, we have willed that all beauty on earth be a means by which we put men to a test, to determine which of them are best in conduct, and verily in time we shall reduce all that is on it to barren dust. Surah Al-Kahf, chapter 18, verses 7 to 8. Since Allah Most High is never unjust, He would not destroy any town or city which does not deserve destruction. Hence, we need to qualify the above prophecy in the Quran, Surah Al-Isra, chapter 17, verse 58, to explain that no town or city which deserves destruction will escape that fate. The destruction of all such towns and cities would take place prior to the end of the world, and any such town or city that escapes destruction would face terrible divine punishment. Nor would Allah Most High reduce the whole earth to barren dust, since that would result in the total destruction of all life on earth. Rather, it would be that part of the earth whose inhabitants are to be destroyed, which would be reduced to barren dust, i.e., after the Great War. Not only does the Quran confirm above a cataclysmic event which will witness the destruction of every city or town which ought to be destroyed, but it also describes an event which constitutes a major sign of Akhir al-Zaman, or the end time, in which the sky will be filled with dukhan, or smoke. فَارْتَقِبْ يَوْمَ تَأْتِي السَّمَاءُ بِدُخَانٍ مُبِينٍ. Wait then for the day when the skies shall bring forth a pall of smoke. Surah Al-Dukhan, chapter 44, verse 10. The Quran even informs us that a flash of fire would occur, after which smoke will fill the sky. يُرْسَلُ عَلَيْكُمَا شُوَاظٌ مِّن نَارٍ وَنُحَاسٌ فَلَا تَنْتَصِرَانِ. There will be sent against you both heat of fire and flash of brass, and you will not escape. Pikthul, a flash of fire will be let loose upon you, and smoke, and you will be left without succor. Asad, he will pursue you with a piercing flame and fiery smoke, and you will not be helped. Aisha Bewley, there shall be sent against you both flame of fire and smoke, and you shall not be able to defend yourselves. Maulana Abdul Majid Daryabadi. Surah Ar-Rahman, chapter 55, verse 35. We note, sadly so, that only Marmaduke Pickthall appears to have remained faithful to the Arabic text of the Quran above when explaining the above verse. He declares, correctly so, that a flame of fire would be let loose on two targets. It is very clear that the people who would be the target of the attack would be those who had jinn supporting them in their evil, and the attack will result in the destruction of that alliance of an evil people with their evil jinn supporters. This essay recognizes the above verses of the Quran to refer to the subject of the Great War, and as a consequence, we conclude that there would be divine intervention in the Great War in support of one side and against the other side. This normally takes place through the intervention of angels. Allah Most High can use the Great War to punish an evil people in such a way that they will have no escape from punishment. And finally, the evil people who would be punished can be identified, since they would be a people who would be assisted in their evil work by evil jinn. Not only does the Quran devote an entire Surah Ar-Rahman to this alliance of evil people with evil jinn, but it also delivers a warning of a day when they will both be punished for their mountains of sins. سَنَفْرُغُ لَكُمْ أَيُّهَا الثَّقَلَانِ. One day we shall take you to task, O you sin-laden too. Surah Ar-Rahman, chapter 55, verse 31, i.e. a people laden with sin, and jinn who are complicit in those sins. Translation of Muhammad Asad. Our comments in brackets. While we recognize the right of our critics to locate the source of that end-time smoke, Surah Ad-Dukhan, chapter 44, verse 10, and end-time fire, Surah Ar-Rahman, chapter 55, verse 35, elsewhere, this writer locates it in the event which will witness the destruction of every town or city which ought to be destroyed. Hence, it would be smoke which will follow the flash of fire from exploding nuclear weapons. This smoke has been poetically described as mushroom clouds, and only schoolboys will argue over poetry. A warning before the Great War. Allah Most High is a just God, and it is in consequence of His standard of divine justice that He has declared that He never punishes a people without first sending someone to warn them. وَمَا كُنَّا مُعَذِّبِينَ حَتَّى نَبْعَثَ رَسُولًا. We never punish a people until we have sent a messenger to warn them. Surah Al-Isra, chapter 17, verse 15. Since Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam declared that he is the last of the prophets and that the Quran is the last of the divinely revealed scriptures, the Muslim who follows the Prophet cannot expect that a divinely appointed messenger will now arise in the world to warn of destruction as well as terrible punishment that would take place in the Great War. This essay declares that it is the role and function of the Quran to deliver that warning which Allah Most High has declared that He would send before the Great War occurs. If our views are correct, then this essay, as well as other essays on this subject written by other scholars, thus assume a great importance and hence require great caution in exposition to ensure that the warning of the Quran is conveyed accurately. In order that such a warning to be accurately conveyed to the world, we need to determine which are those cities and towns which ought to be destroyed. Those who live in such cities and towns, and who reject their godlessness and wickedness, would then have to either change the sinful profile of their cities or make hijrah, i.e. migrate to some other part of the earth. Which are the cities which ought to be destroyed? When Allah Most High destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah for their sexual perversion of homosexuality, He left a warning that He will return with His punishment to destroy those who again embrace such sexual perversion. Only the deaf, dumb and blind would fail to recognize that those who control power in the modern West, led by the USA, are actively promoting the legalization of marriages between a man and another man, and a woman and another woman. The implication is that all towns and cities located in the modern West qualify for divine destruction because of Allah's promise that He will again destroy all those who accept and promote that agenda of sexual perversion. The Quran asked, prior to the divine destruction of the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, أَلَيْسَ مِنْكُمْ رَجُلٌ رَشِيدٌ? Is there not even one rightly guided man among you? Surah Hud, chapter 11, verse 78. This question was not posed only to those who practiced the sexual perversion of homosexuality, but it also included those who tacitly accepted the practice by never condemning it. When Allah Most High destroyed the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah for their sexual perversion of homosexuality, the Quran warned that it was an event which constituted a sign from Allah Most High. إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَةً وَمَا كَانَ أَكْثَرُهُم مُؤْمِنِينَ. Verily in this divine punishment there is a sign, but most of the people do not believe in this sign that Allah will return with this punishment if people return to this sexual perversion. Surah Al-Shu'ara, chapter 26, verse 174. Our first Islamic eschatological conclusion is that the coming Great War will result in the destruction of modern Western civilization in such a way that what remains of the West after the Great War will play no further role in world affairs. The Quran has also warned that Allah Most High, as well as His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, will wage war on the money lender who engages in a riba, i.e., lending money on interest or transactions based on deception which rip people off. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وذروا ما بقي من الربا إن كنتم مؤمنين فإن لم تفعلوا فأذنوا بحرب من الله ورسوله وإن تبتم فلكم رؤوس أموالكم لا تظلمون ولا تظلمون. O you who have faith, fear Allah and give up all outstanding riba or usury if you are believers, for if you do not do it, then take notice of a declaration of war from Allah and His Messenger. Surah Al-Baqarah, chapter 2, verses 278 to 279. This divine prophecy was fulfilled in the lifetime of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when the Muslims succeeded in eradicating riba from the economy. But the warning delivered in Surah Al-Isra is that He will do so again whenever riba raises its blood-stained head in history. The modern West has engorged itself with riba and has grown fat while drinking the blood of all of mankind through a banking system and a monetary system that is built on riba. Hence, Allah's promise of war will surely come to pass. Allah Most High will hence enter into the coming great war to support those who are believers and are the victims of the usurious Western economy in order to punish those who have used riba to take unjust control of the wealth of the world. It is against such people that he has already declared war, and they will soon experience that war to be waged against them. Finally, we may note that Allah Most High destroyed Pharaoh and his people because of his godlessness and his oppression of the Israelite believers. When Pharaoh was drowning, he realized that he was not God, and hence that he was misguided, and then he declared his faith in the God of the Israelite people. Allah Most High then responded to declare that he would preserve Pharaoh's physical body, so that it might one day function as a sign for a people to come after him. The sign was, of course, that if they also were to commit the dhulm that Pharaoh committed, they would suffer the same fate that he and his people suffered. The body of Pharaoh was discovered at the same time that the Zionist movement was formally established in Basel, in Switzerland, in 1897, and since then the countdown began for the reenactment in history of that epic encounter which culminated in divine destruction of the wicked. The great war which now looms upon the world may very well be the occasion when the chickens come home to roost for those who planned and executed the evil 9/11 terrorist attack on America and then wickedly blamed it on others. They are guilty of numerous other false flag acts of terrorism which they blamed time and time again on innocent people. Je suis Charlie equates with Je suis Pharaoh. The Quran has declared that such wickedness will result in divine destruction, and that the moment for such divine punishment is fixed. This essay suggests that time has now run out for the wicked, godless Western rulers of the world, and that the time for their divinely ordained destruction is now fixed with the Great War. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam prophesied the Great War that would be fought between two warring parties, both belonging to the same religious calling. حدثنا أبو هريرة عن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم وذكر أحاديث منها وقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم لا تقوم الساعة حتى تقتتل فئتان عظيمتان وتكون بينهما مقتلة عظيمة ودعواهما واحدة. Abu Hurairah reported many ahadith from Allah's Messenger, and one of them was this: the last hour will not come until the two warring parties confront each other, and there is a large-scale massacre amongst them, and they both belong to the same religious calling. Sahih al-Bukhari. We direct attention to what should be recognized as an indisputable fact, namely that the great war that will soon occur would be fought primarily so by two opposing forces that are both Christian. Our critics, of course, will differ with us. They always do so. Russia, which leads one side in the coming war, is an Orthodox Christian country which has only recently successfully extricated itself from the venomous embrace of a virulently atheist Soviet Union. The United States of America, which now leads a rival Western Christian camp that has constantly waged war on Christian Russia for centuries, and now lusts for another such war, is also a largely Christian country adhering to Western Christianity rather than Orthodox Christianity. How do these two Christian groups differ with each other? There are important differences between the two opposing Christian camps, and it is a matter of great importance indeed for those who seek guidance on this subject from the Quran that we investigate and recognize the differences that exist between the two opposing Christian camps. This is so because the Quran has made a very important distinction between two different kinds of Christians. According to the Quran, there would be Christians who would be closest in love and affection for Muslims. Surah Al-Ma'idah, chapter 5, verse 82. Such Christians would emerge, not just at the time when the Quran was revealed, but also in time to come. Indeed, the Christian king of Abyssinia in Africa did show love and affection for Muslims who were slaves and semi-slaves in pagan Mecca, and who had fled persecution and war on Islam to seek asylum in Abyssinia. The king refused Mecca's request for extradition of their slaves and semi-slaves, and assured the Muslims that they could live in peace and security in Christian Abyssinia for as long as they wished. He also showed great respect for Islam while making favorable comments concerning the religion of Islam. When news reached him that the Christian king had died in Abyssinia, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam performed funeral prayers for him in Yathrib, now called Madinatun Nabi. But the Quran also recognized other Christians, different from those mentioned above, who would one day reconcile with Jews and establish friendship and alliance with them. It not only prohibited Muslims from being friends and allies of such Christians who establish friendship and alliance with Jews, i.e. a Judeo-Christian alliance, but went on to declare that such Muslims would be recognized to have become a part of that Judeo-Christian alliance and to have thus lost their religious identity as Muslims. Surah Al-Ma'idah, chapter 5, verse 51. Thus, when the angels come to question them in their graves, they will find, to their astonishment and dismay, that their claim to be Muslims will be rejected, and they will be judged together with and as a part of their friends and allies in the Judeo-Christian alliance. Let us now attempt to describe the differences which exist between the two Christian camps which are now taking the world to nuclear war. The Orthodox Christians do not want war with the West and have never waged war on Western Christians, but the Orthodox Christians have made it abundantly clear that they are not afraid of war, not even if it be nuclear war. It is the Western camp which has waged endless wars on Orthodox Christian Russia, and now lusts for war with the Orthodox Christians, and the West has always waged war with deception and with a mountain of lies. The most important of the differences or distinctions which separate these two Christian peoples is their relationship with Jews and with the Jewish Zionist movement. While Western Christianity has reconciled with Judaism over the Jewish rejection of Jesus alayhi salam as the Messiah and the Jewish role in demanding his crucifixion, and has moved on to establish a Judeo-Christian Zionist alliance which offers carte blanche support to the State of Israel, the Orthodox Christian world has not moved in that direction and instead contests the exclusive Jewish claim to Jerusalem. Almost the entire Orthodox Christian world opposed the decision of USA to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. Here is the text of the letter addressed by the heads of all such Christian churches in Jerusalem to US President Donald Trump. It was written to protest the US decision to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of the State of Israel. Patriarchs and heads of local churches in Jerusalem, President Donald J. Trump, President of the United States of America, Jerusalem, December 6th, 2017. Dear Mr. President, we are fully aware and appreciative of how you are dedicating special attention to the status of Jerusalem in these days. We are following with attentiveness, and we see that it is our duty to address this letter to Your Excellency. On July 17th, 2000, we addressed a similar letter to the leaders who met in Camp David to decide the status of Jerusalem. They kindly took our letter into consideration. Today, Mr. President, we are confident that you too will take our viewpoint into consideration on the very important status of Jerusalem. Our land is called to be a land of peace. Jerusalem, the city of God, is a city of peace for us and for the world. Unfortunately, though, our holy land with Jerusalem, the holy city, is today a land of conflict. Those who love Jerusalem have every will to work and make it a land and a city of peace, life, and dignity for all its inhabitants. The prayers of all believers in it, the 3 religions, and 2 peoples who belong to this city, rise to God and ask for peace. As the psalmist says, "Return to us, God Almighty. Look down from heaven and see. Inspire our leaders and fill their minds and hearts with justice and peace." Mr. President, we have been following with concern the reports about the possibility of changing how the United States understands and deals with the status of Jerusalem. We are certain that such steps will yield increased hatred, conflict, violence, and suffering in Jerusalem and the Holy Land, moving us farther from the goal of unity and deeper toward destructive division. We ask from you, Mr. President, to help us all walk towards more love and a definitive peace, which cannot be reached without Jerusalem being for all. Our solemn advice and plea is for the United States to continue recognizing the present international status of Jerusalem. Any sudden changes would cause irreparable harm. We are confident that, with strong support from our friends, Israelis and Palestinians can work towards negotiating a sustainable and just peace, benefiting all who long for the holy city of Jerusalem to fulfill its destiny. The holy city can be shared and fully enjoyed once a political process helps liberate the hearts of all people that live within it from the conditions of conflict and destructiveness that they are experiencing. Christmas is upon us soon. It is a feast of peace. The angels have sung in our sky, "Glory to God in the highest, and peace on earth to the people of goodwill." In this coming Christmas, we plea for Jerusalem not to be deprived from peace. We ask you, Mr. President, to help us listen to the song of the angels. As the Christian leaders of Jerusalem, we invite you to walk with us in hope as we build a just, inclusive peace for all the peoples of this unique and holy city. With our best regards and best wishes for a Merry Christmas, patriarchs and heads of churches in Jerusalem. The only Orthodox Christians who did not oppose the American decision were those who had joined NATO. Another important distinction between the 2 camps is the adoption by the Western camp of moral, social, and legal acceptance of a feminist revolution, which the Orthodox Christian world rejects with vehemence. Western Christians constantly advance a feminist agenda, which makes it legal for a man to marry another man and get a marriage certificate. They also prohibit marriage before the age of 18, while considering premarital sex and the consequent loss of virginity prior to marriage to be but a natural stage of the process of growing up. The Orthodox Christians, on the other hand, defiantly reject the homosexual agenda of their Western rivals and consider it to be the most visible sign of Western blasphemy against the Lord God. The terminology in Islam for this blasphemy is kufr. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam warned that the word kafir, disbeliever, would be written on the forehead of the Antichrist. While the Western Christian camp that is led by USA has an arrogant agenda of seeking to impose full spectrum dominance, political, economic, monetary, military, etc., on all of mankind. The present Orthodox Christian world that is led by Russia has no such imperial agenda. It is of course true that while Russia was under the control of some of the Tsars, it was definitely an imperialist power which waged unjust wars against Muslims. But this is not true for Russia today. Western Christianity has embraced secularism, in consequence of which religion no longer constitutes the primary identity of the Western Christian. Rather, religious identity has now been replaced by national identity. The Orthodox Christian world has not been so secularized, and, as a consequence, the primary identity of Orthodox Christians remains their Christian faith. The Orthodox Christian world has maintained religion as the most important social institution in their civilization, and as a consequence, the priesthood and monasticism still play very important roles in Orthodox Christianity. Religion and the religious way of life are fast disappearing as an important institution in Western Christian civilization. Monasticism has largely disappeared in Western Christianity, with churches and monasteries being increasingly sold to McDonald's hamburgers, etc., or to Muslims to be converted to masajid or Islamic schools. The evidence is startlingly clear that the Quran was referring to the Orthodox Christian world when it declared that there would be Christians who would be closest in love and affection to Muslims, and it was referring to Western Christianity when it prohibited Muslims from maintaining friendship and alliance with certain Christians and Jews. Those who obstinately reject the above explanation of the Quran as false and cannot offer another explanation to replace what is presented above have a status of nuisance and should be ignored. A history of centuries of rivalry and warfare. The rivalry between these two camps is not a recent phenomenon, but rather has existed for centuries and became most visible when Western Christianity launched the Crusades or Holy Wars for recovering Jerusalem from Muslim rule. The Crusaders launched an attack on Constantinople, which was the capital city of the Orthodox Christian world, and conquered it in the Fourth Crusade. They ruled over it for several decades before the Orthodox Christians were able to defeat them and liberate their capital city. The extent of rejection of Western Christianity and bitterness against that West in the hearts of Orthodox Christians was most dramatically visible when Constantinople was besieged by the Ottoman so-called Islamic Empire and in mortal danger of falling to the Muslims. The Orthodox Christians turned in desperation to the West for help. The Vatican responded with a condition for Western military intervention that could save Constantinople. The condition was that they should give up their Orthodox Christian faith and join the West religiously. The response of the Orthodox Christian world still remains to this day written in gold. Better the turban of the Muslim than the hat of the cardinal. Orthodox Christianity chose to accept defeat at the hands of the Ottoman Empire rather than avoid such defeat by accepting the terms that Western Christianity offered to intervene militarily to assist the Orthodox Christian world. There is quite some evidence that Western Christianity cooperated and collaborated with the Ottoman Empire in their rivalry with the Orthodox Christian world. Not only did the Ottoman Empire conquer Constantinople and deprive the Orthodox Christian world of their capital city, but also, to add salt to the wound, the Ottomans seized the greatest cathedral of the Orthodox Christian world, Hagia Sophia, and sinfully converted it to a masjid in manifest violation of the clear obligation imposed in the Quran requiring Muslims to protect such houses of God. The Ottomans waged endless wars against the Orthodox Christians until they succeeded in taking control of Crimea, and in this depriving Orthodox Christian Russia of a military presence in the Black Sea. Not only was Orthodox Christian Russia attacked by the West as well as by the Ottoman Empire, but pro-Western Tsars who ruled over Russia did everything that they could to turn Russia away from Orthodox Christianity and towards the West. They also deliberately targeted Muslims while launching grand wars of imperial expansion. Heroic Muslim resistance to such Tsarist Russian imperialism still lingers in the memories of Muslims who were subjected to barbaric Tsarist Russian oppression, and helps to fan, to this day, the flames of hatred for Russia. Muslims seem to have never understood that Orthodox Christian Russia should not be blamed for the sins of the Tsars who were installed over Russia by Russia's greatest enemy. It was precisely because those Tsars advanced the interests of Western Christianity rather than that of Orthodox Christian Russia that they are known in the West as great. The most conspicuous of all such Tsars are Peter the Great and Catherine the Great. When Orthodox Christian Russia succeeded in defeating the Ottomans and in seizing control of Crimea, the Christian West then waged the Crimean War of 1852 to 1855 to successfully deprive Russia of military control over Crimea and a military presence in the Black Sea. That victory of the Christian West in depriving Russia of a military presence in Crimea was short-lived, since Russia succeeded in just a few years in overturning the ban imposed by the West in consequence of their victory in the Crimean War. The most spectacular success that the West ever achieved in its centuries-long attacks on Russia, and, by implication, the Orthodox Christian world, was the successful Bolshevik Revolution of 1917, which brought such regime change to Russia as replaced the rule of Tsar Nicholas that was committed to the preservation and advancement of the Christian faith with an atheist, communist state which not only destroyed the free and fair market in the Orthodox Christian world, but also waged merciless war on the Orthodox Christian faith and church. Even after Germany had surrendered and the Second World War was essentially over, the West allowed the Soviet Union to continue the war until it could take military control of that part of the Orthodox Christian world which had not as yet been conquered. It was certainly not by accident that the Soviet Union also took Crimea away from Russia in 1954 and handed over in the middle of the night to Ukraine. Rather, it was a continuation of the centuries-long endless wars of the West against Orthodox Christian Russia. When Russia again successfully reclaimed Crimea in early 2014 as its own territory and restored its military presence over the Black Sea, the implication was that yet another Western Christian war on Orthodox Christian Russia became inevitable. It is that war which is the subject of this essay. The coming great war to be waged against Russia, and by implication the Orthodox Christian world, forms part of a hostile military and religious profile which has persisted in Western Christianity ever since Rome parted from Constantinople more than 1,000 years ago. However, this coming great war is different from all previous wars, since it will be, without question, the greatest war ever fought in human history. It also threatens to be the final war, since the nuclear weapons that will be used, as well as other such weapons of mass destruction, have the potential to destroy both sides of the war. Russian President Vladimir Putin warned the Western Christian world with these ominous words: Don't mess with nuclear Russia. We therefore know beyond doubt that Russia will not hesitate to respond to any Western Christian military attack on Russia or on Russia's ally, Syria, with a nuclear response. This will be so even though Russia knows that nuclear war will devastate both sides in the war. In fact, Russia will have no option other than to respond with nuclear weapons to an attack launched by the Christian West. This is so because it is almost certain that the Western Christian strategy would be to seek to cripple Russia with a massive first strike, while using a large number of nuclear weapons. One can already anticipate that Russia would be ready for that first strike and would respond with a massive nuclear response even before the Western nuclear bombs could reach Russian territory and military bases. The coming Great War would thus be a unique war in military history. It is in this context that we turn to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who has prophesied that precisely such a unique war would occur. The Prophet and the Great War. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam prophesied that a great war will occur in which 99% of all combatants will be killed. This would be a unique war, since there has never been a war in history in which 99% of combatants were killed. What is very strange about this war is that it will be fought even though all those who fight would do so with the knowledge that very few would survive the war. This is clear from the prophecy of the Blessed Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that each of the combatants would say, "We would be the ones who would survive." It should not be difficult for readers to recognize that such a war would have to be fought using weapons of mass destruction, such as nuclear and thermonuclear, never before used in warfare. The Great War that is coming would be precisely such a war. Since that war is now so close that it can occur at any time, it is fair for our readers to ask, why has the mountain of gold not as yet emerged from under the river? The Prophet disclosed that the Great War would be fought because the river Euphrates would uncover a mountain of gold, and the war would be fought for that gold. However, he advised the believers that they should not touch that gold. It should be clear to those who have even an elementary capacity to think that the Great War would not be fought unless and until the river has uncovered that mountain of gold. A divine prophecy in the Quran of victory for those who follow Jesus alayhi salam and over those who reject him and commit kufr, disbelief. The Quran has prophesied the outcome of this great war between two Christian people, one of whom struggles to faithfully follow Christianity and the other with a profile of kufr, or essential rejection of Christianity. Here is the verse of the Quran which has dramatically disclosed such an event concerning the followers of Jesus alayhi salam that must occur before the end of history. إذ قال الله يا عيسى إني متوفيك ورافعك إلي ومطهرك من الذين كفروا وجاعل الذين اتبعوك فوق الذين كفروا إلى يوم القيامة ثم إلي مرجعكم فأحكم بينكم فيما كنتم فيه تختلفون فأما الذين كفروا فأعذبهم عذابا شديدا في الدنيا والآخرة وما لهم من ناصرين وأما الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات فيوفيهم أجورهم والله لا يحب الظالمين. Lo, God said, O Jesus, verily I shall take your soul and shall raise you unto me and cleanse you of those who commit kufr, disbelief, and I shall place those who follow you above those who commit kufr unto the day of resurrection. In the end, Unto me you all must return, and I shall judge between you in matters wherein you differ. And as for those who are bent on denying the truth, I shall cause them to suffer a suffering severe in this world and in the life to come, and they shall have none to succour them. Whereas unto those who attain to faith and do good works, He will grant their reward in full. For God does not love evildoers. Surah Al Imran, chapter 3, verses 55 to 57. The above passage of the Quran has not disclosed the divine declaration in support of those who follow Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, since they are not followers of Jesus alayhi salam. Rather, it has disclosed a prophecy pertaining to those to whom Jesus alayhi salam was sent. Who are they? وَرَسُولًا إِلَى بَنِي إِسْرَائِيلَ. Jesus alayhi salam was sent to Bani Israel, i.e. the Israelite people. Surah Al Imran, chapter 3, verse 49. وَإِذْ قَالَ عِيسَى بْنُ مَرْيَمَ يَا بَنِي إِسْرَائِيلَ إِنِّي رَسُولُ اللَّهِ إِلَيْكُمْ. When Jesus the son of Mary said, O Israelite people, behold, I am a messenger of Allah unto you. Surah As-Saf, chapter 61, verse 6. The Quran has established quite clearly in the above verses that Jesus alayhi salam was sent to the Israelite people. Hence, it is they who are required to follow him and not the followers of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. The divine prophecy quoted above, Surah Al Imran, chapter 3, verses 55 to 57, has therefore delivered news of an event that will occur amongst those to whom Jesus alayhi salam was sent, i.e. the Israelites, who are also known as Ahlul Kitab. Allah Most High has declared that history cannot end without such divine intervention of assistance to those who accept Jesus alayhi salam and who faithfully follow him, that they will overcome and subjugate those who commit kufr or disbelief in relation to Jesus alayhi salam and the truth which he brought. We recognize first of all that when the verse referred to those who follow Jesus alayhi salam, it would have to be those who accept him as the Messiah, and that is the Christian world. Those, on the other hand, who are referred to in the verse as a people who commit kufr, disbelief, would have to be those who reject Jesus alayhi salam as the Messiah and continue to do so to this day, and that is the Jewish world. Hence, this prophecy in the Quran has informed us that Christians would eventually prevail over and subjugate Jews, and therefore the Jewish state of Israel, before history can end. This prophecy cannot therefore include amongst the ranks of Christians who follow Jesus alayhi salam a Western Christian world, which is now the greatest supporter of the Jews and the Jewish state of Israel. We are therefore left with an implication from the verse that the Christians referred to would have to be the Orthodox Christian world, which is led by Russia. In addition, Western Christianity is in a state of overt kufr as they promote their evil agenda for a man to marry another man and receive a legally valid marriage certificate. Such Christians will now be included with those, the Jews, who reject Jesus as the Messiah. It is they who will be defeated and subjugated by the true followers of Jesus alayhi salam before history can end. The Quran has declared that Rome will twice be victorious. The Quran attaches such importance to a people called Rome that a chapter of the book is named after them, Surah Al-Rum. Rome has to be a state with an army, since the Quran confirmed that Rome was defeated in a land close by. But the Quran went on to prophesy, dramatically so, that Rome would change defeat into victory within just a few years. ألف لام ميم غلبت الروم في أدنى الأرض وهم من بعد غلبهم سيغلبون في بضع سنين لله الأمر من قبل ومن بعد ويومئذ يفرح المؤمنون بنصر الله ينصر من يشاء وهو العزيز الرحيم وعد الله لا يخلف الله وعده ولكن أكثر الناس لا يعلمون يعلمون ظاهرا من الحياة الدنيا وهم عن الآخرة هم غافلون. ألف لام ميم. Rome was defeated in a land located close by, yet, notwithstanding this defeat which they have experienced, they will soon be victorious, with victory coming within just a few years. Victory will take place twice, in consequence of Allah's command, both previously as well as to come, and on that day when Rome is victorious, the believers will rejoice in Allah's assistance through which He delivered victory. He helps in this way whomever He chooses to help, since He alone is almighty and kind. Let the world take notice of Allah's promise of victory for Rome on 2 occasions, and remember that Allah never fails to fulfill His promise, but most people know it not. Rather, they have knowledge of only the contemporary, external phenomena of the life of this world, whereas they are ignorant of the events that will occur at the end, i.e., in the end time. Surah Ar-Rum, chapter 30, verses 1-7. When the Quran referred above to Rome, it had to be the Byzantine Christian Empire, which was based in Constantinople, which was defeated in Syria by the Persian Zoroastrian Empire, and that the prophecy of the Quran was fulfilled when they defeated the Persians within a few years. Muhammad Asad, the commentator of the Quran, has commented on the defeat and subsequent victory of Rome as follows. The defeats and victories spoken of above relate to the last phases of the centuries-long struggle between the Byzantine and Persian empires. During the early years of the 7th century, the Persians conquered parts of Syria and Anatolia. The lands close by, i.e., near the heartland of the Byzantine Empire. In 613 they took Damascus, and in 614 Jerusalem. Egypt fell to them in 615 to 616, and at the same time they laid siege to Constantinople itself. At the time of the revelation of this surah, about the 7th year before the Hijrah, corresponding to 615 or 616 of the Christian era, the total destruction of the Byzantine Empire seemed imminent. The few Muslims around the Prophet were despondent on hearing the news of the utter discomfiture of the Byzantines, who were Christians and, as such, believed in the one God. The pagan Quraysh, on the other hand, sympathized with the Persians, who they thought would vindicate their own opposition to the one God idea. When Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam enunciated the above Quran verses, predicting a Byzantine victory within a few years, this prophecy was received with derision by the Quraysh. Now the term bid, commonly rendered as a few, denotes any number between 3 and 10. And as it happened, in 622, i.e., 6 or 7 years after the Quranic prediction, the tide turned in favor of the Byzantines. In that year, Emperor Heraclius succeeded in defeating the Persians at Issus, south of the Taurus Mountains, and subsequently drove them out of Asia Minor. By 624, he carried the war into Persian territory and thus put the enemy on the defensive. And in the beginning of December 626, the Persian armies were completely routed by the Byzantines. If Rome is to be victorious in the end, i.e., the end time, and that victory is to come in consequence of Allah's help, we must seek to determine which Christians will deserve Allah's help and would consequently be victorious, the Byzantine Empire formally split into two parts in 1054, with one part based in Constantinople and the other based in Rome. Hence, there are now two Christian worlds, one east and the other west. Modern Western civilization has emerged from Rome of the West, and it is that civilization which has betrayed Jesus, alayhi salam, to such an extent that they now advance the agenda for a man to marry another man and get a marriage certificate. We conclude that Allah's promise of help and victory, Surah Al-Rum, chapter 31, verses 1 to 7, Surah Al Imran, chapter 3, verse 55, will apply to the Orthodox Christians who are led by Orthodox Christian Russia. Hence, Russia will emerge victorious in the Great War, which will soon occur. This conclusion finds further support in the prophecy of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam that the conquest of Constantinople by a Muslim army will occur after the Great War. In other words, the outcome of the Great War will make that conquest of Constantinople possible. Hence, it is not difficult to anticipate that NATO will be defeated in the Great War. Implications and consequences of the Great War. Islamic eschatology allows us to look forward to continuity of life on at least part of the earth after the Great War. Not only would a Muslim army conquer Constantinople after the Great War and break the stranglehold that the West had over the Bosphorus ever since the Ottoman Empire conquered Constantinople on May 29th, 1453. But the Antichrist would also appear in material form after the conquest of that city to rule over the state of Israel with the bogus claim to be the true Messiah. While this essay does not provide an Islamic eschatological description of events that will occur subsequent to the conquest of Constantinople, we can anticipate that such a conquest of that city would make it possible for the true world of Islam, which is faithful to the Quran, to return the cathedral of Hagia Sophia to the Orthodox Christian world. Indeed, the return to the Orthodox Christian world of that cathedral, which was shamefully, disgracefully, and sinfully converted to a masjid by the conquering Ottoman Sultan Muhammad Fatih, would seal an alliance between the community of true followers of Jesus alayhi salam with the community of true followers of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. It would be at that time that a strategically important prophecy in the Quran would be fulfilled, and there would be nothing that the deaf, dumb and blind, die-hard supporters of the imperial Ottoman so-called Islamic State can do to prevent it. Allah Most High has declared that in time to come, a Christian people would be closest in love and affection to Muslims, and this essay concludes that the Orthodox Christian world would fulfill that prophecy in the Quran despite all the efforts made by that Ottoman Empire over a period of almost 600 years to sabotage that end-time friendship and alliance between these two religious communities. Here is the prophecy in the Quran. لَتَجِدَنَّ أَشَدَّ النَّاسِ عَدَاوَةً لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا الْيَهُودَ وَالَّذِينَ أَشْرَكُوا وَلَتَجِدَنَّ أَقْرَبَهُمْ مَوَدَّةً لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا الَّذِينَ قَالُوا إِنَّا نَصَارَى ذَلِكَ بِأَنَّ مِنْهُمْ قِسِّيسِينَ وَرُهْبَانًا وَأَنَّهُمْ لَا يَسْتَكْبِرُونَ. You will surely find that, of all people, the most hostile to those who believe in this divine writ are the Jews, as well as those who blaspheme against the Lord God. And you will surely find that, of all people, they who say, "Behold, we are Christians," come closest to feeling love and affection for those who believe in this divine writ. This is so because there are priests and monks among them, and because they are not arrogant. Surah Al-Ma'idah, chapter 5, verse 82. Verses of hope and a prayer for protection and relief. The Quran has provided for the believers a prayer which they should recite for protection and relief at the time of the Great War. رَبَّنَا اكْشِفْ عَنَّا الْعَذَابَ إِنَّا مُؤْمِنُونَ. O our Lord God, kindly relieve us of this terrible torment, for we are indeed a people who have faith in you. Surah Al-Dukhan, chapter 44, verse 12. It has also provided verses which deliver hope to the hearts of the believers so that they be not gripped with fear and fall into a state of despair. الذين قال لهم الناس إن الناس قد جمعوا لكم فاخشوهم فزادهم إيمانا وقالوا حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل. Those unto whom men said, Lo, the people have gathered against you, therefore fear them. The threat of danger but increased the faith of them, and they cried, Allah is sufficient for us. Excellent is He in whom we trust. Surah Ali Imran, chapter 3, verse 173. فانقلبوا بنعمة من الله وفضل لم يمسسهم سوء واتبعوا رضوان الله والله ذو فضل عظيم. So they returned with grace and favor from Allah, and no harm touched them. They followed the good pleasure of Allah, and Allah is of infinite bounty. Surah Ali Imran, chapter 3, verse 174. فَلَا تَخَافُوهُمْ وَخَافُونِي إِن كُنْتُمْ مُؤْمِنِينَ. It is only the devil who would make men fear his partisans. Fear them not, fear me, if you are true believers. Surah Ali Imran, chapter 3, verse 175.